The AP MVP award has been around since 1957. Usually this award gets handed out to quarterbacks. Of the 57 different players who won this award, 38 of them are quarterbacks, 16 of them are running backs, and only 3 are various other positions. In this video, we're going to rank the 16 running backs from worst to best, or more accurately, least best to best, since they're all really good players. Also, I'm going to rank these players based on their overall careers, not just their individual MVP seasons, and I have a few reasons for doing this. Firstly, some running backs had better non-MVP seasons and just didn't win the award that year because the Associated Press loves awarding quarterbacks so much. Also, there's a running back with multiple MVPs. And if I just did the one season ranking, this video would feel more like a yard comparison ranking rather than an overall value or impact ranking. So without further ado, let's rewind onto that list. In 16th place, we have Paul Hornung. Paul is a great individual talent, no disrespect to him. The main reason why he ranks this low is that he played on a stacked team with other AP MVPs on the very same roster, such as his fullback teammate Jim Taylor and quarterback Bart Starr. In his AP MVP season, he only got 8 touchdowns, 597 yards, and started in 11 games. I don't think anyone having that type of season in today's era would ever come close to the AP MVP award. And this isn't an era thing. Jim Brown was playing in the same era, giving you quadruple the amount of yards. Paul is still a legendary player and a champion. Paul won AP MVP in 1961. Rest in peace to Paul. In 15th place, we have Paul's teammate Jim Taylor. Jim ranks this low for very similar reasons as Paul. When the same team has multiple AP MVPs, this is more of a media not wanting to let one player hog the award, but they still want to reward the best team in some facet. Jim individually is still a legendary player and a champion. Jim won AP MVP in 1962. Rest in peace to Jim. In 14th place, we have Larry Brown, not the coach of the 76ers, but the 4-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro, and 1972 AP MVP. Larry individually is a great quarterback. There's just a ton of competition going forward. Even in his best season, his MVP season, he totaled 1,216 yards, which is good, but many running backs have much higher totals and have done this for far more seasons. He only crossed over 1,000 one other time in his 1970 season. He did make it to the Super Bowl in his MVP season, but still lost to the Miami Dolphins. In 13th place is Marshall Faulk, who won AP MVP in the year 2000. When you're playing with a 2-time AP MVP Kurt Warner, sometimes it feels like the media would rather give the Rams an MVP to someone else rather than giving Kurt a third one. Not that Marshall is a bad player, in fact he's a great player and a Super Bowl champion, though he never led the league in yards, and even in his MVP season he got a solid 1,359 yards, which is good, but there's just so much competition going forward. Ranking in 12th place is Marcus Allen. Marcus is the true definition of a team player who knows how to make sacrifices in order for the team to succeed. He understood that there is no I in team, and that's one of his most valuable traits. Now, after his MVP season in 1985, he had an ankle injury early on into the very next season. This injury somewhat changed his entire dynamic and reduced the rest of his career. While he still managed to be a solid running back, he never got back to those MVP levels, which is why he ranks outside of the top 10. Landing in 11th place, some consider him the greatest postseason running back ever, we have Terrell Davis. He's yet another amazing running back whose career got cut off way too short due to a right knee injury. In his 1998 MVP season, he had an insane 2,008 yards and 21 touchdowns, leading the league in yards and touchdowns that very season. Just one season later, he ran into injuries, but just the fact that he was able to return to the sport at any level was an achievement in of itself, but ultimately his short career does have an effect on his overall ranking. We finally enter the top 10, and in 10th place is Shaun Alexander. Shaun's 2005 AP MVP season was one for the ages. He had an insane 27 touchdowns, 1,880 total yards, and averaged 117.5 yards per game. If I was ranking individual seasons, Shaun would have been ranked so much higher, but even still, cracking the top 10 is nothing to scoff at. If we look at his overall career, he did run into injuries, cutting his career short. His team did come close to winning the Super Bowl, though the Pittsburgh Steelers would love to let you know how that one ended. In 9th place ranks Thurman Thomas, who in his 1991 MVP season, you can argue that wasn't even his best season. I think his 92 season is a little more impressive all across the board, and his 1993 season you can argue was a slightly tad bit better than the 91 season. Now, he did lose 4 straight Super Bowls, and that is more of a team situation situation rather than an individual one, but even making it to 4 straight Super Bowls in a row has never been achieved either, so that can be looked at as a positive light as well. That's quite impressive. As for ranking him higher or lower, I think it's hard to rank him higher when in his best season he only got 1,487 yards, which is great, but add that plus the second half of his career, which this dude had a really quick prime. It's why I can't rank him higher. He had too many seasons where he just couldn't even get past 650 yards in the later half of his career. He's still an all-time great though. In 8th place, we have the 2012 AP MVP Adrian Peterson, who at the time played for the Vikings, but during his career he's been a bit of an NFL journeyman so far, playing for 7 different teams. He is 37 and still playing in the NFL, which is super impressive considering he's a running back, but his prime was clearly with the Vikings. As for the Vikings, he is their all-time leading rusher. Now, I know a lot of people would like to have him in their top 5, and in my top 5, I do have running backs without Super Bowls, so I'm not using that as the reason why he's outside of the top 5. He's certainly a top 10 all-time running back for me, regardless of AP MVP or not. The thing is, Peterson's Vikings went 41-39 with him on the field, and had 3 solid seasons, 2 division wins, and 1 wild card. That's pretty good, but not legendary. I really don't want to use team results to rank an individual player, but when your entire offense nearly relies on one player, it's hard not to factor it when you need to start splitting hairs in order to find tiebreakers among these all-time great running backs. In 7th place is O.J. Simpson. O.J. simply knew how to slice up and stab through any opposing defense. These defenses had no idea how to keep O.J. locked up. He could always escape, and this man made a killing playing for the Bills and 49ers. He won AP MVP in 1973. Now, how does O.J. rank higher than, say, Adrian Peterson? I think O.J. played in a much tougher era. It was certainly a kill or get killed type of era, and averaging 143 yards per game in his best season is tough to beat. The juice is almost untouchable. He could change direction without losing momentum or speed. Rushing into 6th place, we have LaDainian Tomlinson. If you need a touchdown, Tomlinson is your guy. If you need, say, 31 touchdowns, Tomlinson is still your guy. This man has achieved some unbelievable things. LaDainian is one of the only 3 runners in NFL history to secure 100 receptions in a season, which happened in 2003. In 2006, he won the AP MVP, and many consider him the fantasy football GOAT. This guy can rack up yards. I don't need to explain why he's great. What I do need to explain is why he's not in my top 5. Aside from the insane competition, he only led the league in yards twice, which is good, but the competition for the top 5 is just too strong going forward. And now for the top 5. In 5th place, I am taking Emmitt Smith. Emmitt probably has the best trophy case for a running back aside for Jim Brown, since not only did he win AP MVP in 1993, he is also a 3-time Super Bowl champion, though it is fair to say that those Cowboys teams in the 90s were some of the best NFL teams ever constructed. Of course, many thanks to Emmitt's talents himself, and he did lead the league in yards 4 times. Smith is also the all-time leader in rushing yards with a total of 18,355. There's no denying Emmitt is great, but guys ranked ahead of him I think did more with less in terms of overall team help. In 4th place, I'm taking Earl Campbell, who won AP MVP in 1979. This guy was out the gates legendary. He came in 2nd place for AP MVP votes in his rookie season, then won the award in his sophomore season. Right from the get-go, he led the league in yards and yard average. And yes, his career is shorter than most of the guys in the top 5, which is why it's hard for me to put him in the top 3 per se, but this man's peak, he is one to be wrecked with. Sure, you can argue that Emmitt has better stat totals and a nicer trophy case, but I think Earl played in a much tougher era and was carrying a much weaker team, yet he still led the team to success. Ranking in 3rd place is Barry Sanders. Forget out the gates legendary, Barry was start to finish legendary. Even in his final season, he gave you 1,491 yards with an average of 93.2. Those stats are great for a running back in their prime, forget their final season, and Barry had one of the toughest carry jobs in NFL history. Seriously, where would those 90s Detroit Lions teams even be without Barry Sanders? And sure, Barry never won a Super Bowl, but just the fact alone he was able to keep those teams relevant is an achievement in of itself. Sanders was the first player in NFL history to rush over 1,000 yards per season in his first 10 seasons. Coming in 2nd place is Walter Payton. Much like Barry Sanders, Walter's career from start to finish was GOAT status. He won AP MVP in 1977 and is a Chicago Bears lifer. He's the only player so far in NFL history to get over 1,200 yards yards in 10 different seasons. If you have him as your running back go and in first place, I can totally understand you. If he's outside of your top 3, then we have some problems to rank him anywhere below 4. I'll get to my first place pick soon, but for now, let me tell you that Walter Payton had an incredible balance and was a phenomenal blocker who took on linebackers with an incredible stiff arm and shoulder to shoulder, as this guy was durable like no tomorrow. If he played in today's era, who knows how much rings he would have had. Rest in peace to the legendary Walter Payton. And last, but certainly not least, we have the greatest fullback of all time, Jim Brown. He won AP MVP 3 times, once in 1957, the first AP MVP ever, another in 1958, the first back-to-back AP MVP, and another in 1965, proving he played at a GOAT level from start to finish. He was an MVP in his rookie season, and he was an MVP in his final season. He led the league in yards in every season he ever played except one. That's insane. Jim Brown, if he wanted to, could have easily stayed in the NFL, and on talent alone, this man without question is the GOAT for running backs. The only argument you can have against him is that he played 9 seasons, but every season he did play was simply unstoppable. It's not that strong of an argument. He was always in the MVP conversation even after winning it multiple times, but voter fatigue is a thing. If it wasn't, he could have easily had more than 3. So here is every AP MVP ranked from least best to best. These aren't the top 16 running backs all time, since there are some great ones who don't even have this trophy, but nonetheless, let me know what you thought of this list and what you want to see in the future. Don't forget to tackle that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Touchdown Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.